Hello and welcome to Forever F1. It is Bahrain race weekend and lots are happening, including the resignation of the FIA Deputy President Robert Reid. A bit of a bombshell on the eve of Bahrain, and it kind of sort of shows exactly where Formula One is at the moment, or FIA in general, which is not a particularly happy place. Lots of controversy regarding the administration of FIA, especially under the rule of Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who is the deputy, he is the president of the FIA, and there's been lots of high-profile departures from the FIA in the last sort of year, and things are really starting to heat up with regards to a big overhaul coming to the FIA, with a lot of people worried about the sort of the future of motorsport in the world, in a body that is embodied in so much controversy and so many accusations about sort of a bit of a power struggle, where those at the top are effectively basically changing rules and mandates and MOIs and the likes of that to actually make themselves less accountable for what's going on, and lots of accusations towards moving towards a dictatorship very much seen to be mounting. Coming up, though, we're going to be talking a little bit about the resignation from Robert Reid, which was announced a couple of hours ago. We're also going to be looking ahead to this weekend, looking at the teams and the fact that how things have changed from testing through to where the current standings are. Carlos Sainz come out and defended his start to the season. We've got a bit of a new look for Lewis Hamilton, as well as Isaac Hadjar, who says that he is ready to go for Red Bull should they need him. So let's get into it, shall we? So this came out a few hours ago, and this was on Robert Reid's official Twitter, or X, and it says as follows. As you can see, after deep reflection, I have made the difficult decision to resign as FIA Deputy President for Sport. I took on this role to help deliver greater transparency, stronger governance, and more collaborative leadership. Over time, those principles have been increasingly set aside, and I can no longer, in good faith, remain part of a system that no longer reflects them. Stepping away was not easy, however, staying would have meant compromising what I believe in. This is about principles, not politics. Motorsport deserves leadership rooted in integrity, accountability, and respect for process. That's the minimum standard we should all expect and demand. Quite a damning assessment of what is happening at the FIA at the moment. Now, this departure comes after the FIA have recently lost their sporting director, the F1 technical director, digital director, head of commercial legal affairs, governance and regulatory director, race director, the head of the Women in Motorsports Commission, Secretary General of Mobility, and the Director of Communications. That all came from last year. So there's been a huge walkout within the FIA. Also, what happened with race director Niels Wittich, as well as Tim Mayer, who's one of the main stewards, were effectively apparently sacked basically in November. The FIA have responded to Robert Reid's sort of accusations and statement by saying the following. The FIA is grateful for Robert Reid's contribution to the FIA and to motorsport more widely. The FIA has exceptionally robust corporate governance policies which guide our operations and ensure our rules, practices, and processes are adhered to. Recently, Robert Reid basically said that there was a unilateral decision to internalize and promote the World Rallycross Championship, which did not go to the FIA Senate, whereupon the FIA's official statement was, the FIA World Rallycross Championship is a hugely popular sport. In recent years, world and European rallycross events have been watched by a growing audience of over 30 million viewers spanning over 100 countries. The FIA has directly invested into the championship for the benefit of fans, teams, and FIA member clubs. The investment is in line with the FIA's commitment to double participation in motorsport globally. Which I don't think anyone's going to sort of be hazard to guess in terms of their efforts there. But they're basically, from the sound of it, in terms of following due process. I think this is the big thing that is the issue, because former CEO of the FIA, Natalie Robin, has spoken about the fact that, when she left, there were challenging circumstances regarding to the government framework and sort of how the FIA itself operates. Now, at the moment, there's lots of controversy, mainly sort of surrounding Ben Sulayem, who is obviously the president. Now, there was accusations towards him in the past year about sort of fixing the result of the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, of trying to basically not get ahead with the Las Vegas Grand Prix. But the claims were dismissed, and there's sort of no official sort of findings on them. But he has not been the most popular of figures in recent years, and lots of people basically saying that he is basically taking over the FIA and then removing the structures that would uphold him to any sort of criticism or any sort of accountability, really. And which is a worrying sign. The big thing about when it comes to global organizations, any organization, is governance. Governance needs to be at the core of all good operating agencies and sports bodies and the likes of that. It's all about governance. It's all about making sure that the framework in which these federations operate in is a good one, where people in high positions can be held accountable and are accountable to their membership and to their funders and investors and the likes of that, and that there are sort of checks and balances. There are systems in place where if they are not upholding the principles and the directive of those federations, that they can be held on account and that they can be taken to task on those sort of issues. And that's sort of the big accusations that's currently happening at the moment. So it's a very interesting time, I think, in motorsports, and I think we're heading towards a bit of a fallout eventually. There's so much money going into F1 at the moment, so much money going into lots of different motorsports. Everyone's trying to get a piece of the pie, and I think there's a lot of accusations that it's not all being done in good faith, and that there's a lot of sort of undercard and a bit of and corruption, sort of floating into these federations and the likes of that. So it is a developing story in terms of how things will potentially pan out with regards to his resignation, but does not look good from the face of it, and it's a very damning statement to leave. I think very much, I'm going to go out with a bit of a bang, was Robert Reid's sort of plan. But let's get into the weekend, shall we? So this was quite an interesting graphic, I thought. So this was basically, there's two graphics, the teams that were fastest at testing versus what we're actually seeing now. And obviously testing doesn't give you the full picture. For example, McLaren was fifth fastest in testing, but we knew they had a really good car. We knew they had a car that was going to compete. So Williams was fastest and yet have been the fifth fastest so far in the actual championship so far. Ferrari was second fastest and they're actually fourth. Mercedes have gone up one. Red Bull have gone up one. Aston Martin have been exactly the same. Red Bull race, the V car has been exactly the same. Haas were pretty poor in testing, but they've actually had a pretty good start to the season. Sauber have very surprised people. Alpine, not to point fingers, but Jack Doohan's really struggled in that car. And that's why, a lot of people are talking about the fact that he could potentially be on the way up, because Alpine are yet to score points so far this season, and they were the best of the rest last year. So not good. I mean, I don't think anybody really saw Sauber having 6 points after the first 3 races. A lot better than what they saw last year. In terms of the drivers, Carlos Sainz was the fastest in testing. He does not feature in the top 10 so far. So that has been a big disappointment. We've got a quote from him about what potentially going wrong there. The two Ferraris, unfortunately, have not really managed to kick on. George Russell has been there and thereabouts, as is Antonelli. Verstappen, I think, has been a lot faster in a car people didn't expect, maybe. And the McLarens, who weren't particularly good in testing, have dominated so far in the season. But interesting to sort of see kind of how much you don't necessarily need to read into testing, and how much things can change from there until the first race. So I think a lot of it's also, your team's not wanting to show their cards, really, when it comes to their cars, and basically trying to sort of lure other teams into a sense that maybe they don't have a fast car when they actually do, and they don't want to sort of go too quickly. Let's have a look at this weekend, because could we see a fourth different winner? So far, 3 races, 3 Grand Prix, 4 races, all different winners. So we've got Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen as your Grand Prix winners so far this season, and Lewis Hamilton, who won a sprint. So from that point of view, maybe important to sort of focus on the bigger picture here, because if we look at Suzuka, it wasn't a showstopper Grand Prix, but at the end of the day, what we've seen so far this season has been quite interesting. We are seeing different winners. We are seeing different cars competing, which is obviously a good thing. We want to see variety. We want to see these championships and the likes of that get nice and close, which is an important thing. Funny enough, we kind of laughed off the suggestions that, especially after Tsunoda and Lawes continue to struggle, whilst Isaac Hadjar had a very good weekend in Suzuka. He said, "I would say I'm ready to take up the rest seat in Red Bull Racing if he gets the opportunity." I don't think we'll see it happening this season, but it would be quite amusing, wouldn't it? And it just kind of goes to show that I don't think there's a lot of difference between the drivers at the moment, but I think they're all struggling in a car which is not set up particularly well for anybody bar Max Verstappen. And that's why I think we are seeing, Tsunoda, in theory, I think for me, is a better driver than Hadjar. You'd think he is. Liam Lawson last year looked to be a better driver than Tsunoda, and everyone seems to be struggling in that Red Bull. So I really hope that he doesn't get that promotion as head job, because he's just not ready to be able to try and compete in a car which is kind of being set to fail, basically. And this is an interesting quote coming from Carlos Sainz, basically saying, if you expect to see the best of Carlos Sainz at Williams in the third race in a new car, you don't understand the sport very well. Which is a good point. At the end of the day, he's at a new team. Much like we haven't seen the best of Lewis Hamilton. We saw it slightly in the sprint race, which was really impressive from him. But it is a new season, a new car, a new team, and especially, going from a Ferrari to a Williams, very different with regards to the kind of pace you're going to get, the type of car you're going to get. And we will see the best of Carlos Sainz as the season goes on. I think we do. And I think Williams can give him a car where he can compete for points quite regularly. But and it makes good sense, within 3 races of the year, or of what is a very long year, it's going to take a while before he can really sort of settle into that. And then finally, a bit of a new look for Lewis Hamilton this weekend. Seems to be sporting the hair outside the braids. Where that'll change as we go into the weekend, time will tell. The main thing, if you look at some of the photos, looking very relaxed going into this weekend. The Ferrari have confirmed that they will be bringing in that floor upgrade. And very interestingly, not to talk about the fact that Charles Leclerc apparently has found a way of managing the understeer of that Ferrari, of that SF25. And hopefully we'll see both drivers with a bit more pace, a bit more control, I think, is the main thing when it comes to that car. At the moment, they kind of seem to be fighting a little bit. Whereas, for example, the McLarens at the moment are really sort of pretty in tune with their car. The drivers of Ferrari seem to be fighting against it. And I think as soon as you kind of switch that, and you can find a bit of a better fit for the two drivers. We know their pedigree, give them the pace, and they'll be able to compete. I think they've got the best lineup on the grid. And if they can just get a car to match that, then hopefully Ferrari could start to really compete once again, and we can see Ferrari back in contention to win a drivers' championship and the World Championship as well. We'll be covering all the different sessions throughout the weekend, so make sure you smash like on the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.